Hi, everyone, and welcome to another week of our weekly webinar with Jochen Schlese. As usual, we will give everyone a few minutes to join in, get settled, and then we'll jump right in. So today's presentation will actually be talking about the webinar that's taking place tomorrow, and it is the first ever annual Saddlefit for Life conference. So we're excited to talk about it and to just briefly go over some of the speakers that will be presenting there. So I'll give it over to Jochen right now, and we will begin.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. These weeks just fly right by, and here we are Friday again. Today is a Super Friday. I call it Super Friday because, as Sonia already said, we have our first seminar tomorrow, our first global wisdom exchange. And I have worked with most of them already and met most of them personally, and the wealth of knowledge these people have will definitely benefit many, many horses worldwide. So most of you know me already. For those who don't know me, I just do a very quick introduction. Myself, I grew up in Buenos Aires and I fell in love with horses. Was lucky enough to represent my country as a 3-day event rider. This was my first 4-star eventing at the German championship. And then he developed symptoms no veterinarian or body worker could they could help me with them, but they could not help me with stopping to have them reoccurring. So, and it was somewhere in the left shoulder, and most saddles sit behind the shoulder, and especially dressage saddles. And I didn't understand why the shoulder is sore from the saddle. And so I made it my mission. My calling, my mission is to surround myself with many, many experts from all over the world. And that's kind of what tomorrow all about, it's a wisdom exchange. My little intro here is just to tell you, I did it out of desperation because when I lost my best friend, my horse, for him, it was too late. But I thought it doesn't need to be too late for all other horse owners. So when I listened to the experts and schools that are over 400 years old, where they say the saddle has to fit the rider first, and if the rider doesn't have a pliable seat, it will damage the horse. I needed to understand first, what's the difference? How to fit a rider? What does a rider need? And is it blocks? Is it a deep seat? What is it? And isn't it nice that we have today medical doctors who also ride and can give you very detailed how our body works by mechanics, as well as how we build difference between men and female riders. So for a master saddler making saddles, it was absolutely crucial for me to know every detailed difference, how that impedes. And if you ignore it, you have long-term damage, and then of course we have other veterinarians from all over the world who have tools such as thermographies, and all kinds of tools are now available for the equestrian specialists, the veterinarians. Well, it was never there before, gait analysis, thermography, MRIs, portable X-ray machine, fiber optic cameras injected underneath the saddle. So you don't need to inject, you don't need to dissect the horse and then put the tree on a dissected horse on the bottom left here to see, oh, that's where the left shoulder damage comes from. It's actually from the saddle. So when I saw this, and it's now available on video, this is from a vet from New Zealand, it says, okay, this gotta stop, and when we know, we could take it a step further, and then by the time they look at the bones, we can really see all the damages saddles can cause by domes and by saddles to bones. And one of our members tomorrow or panelists will be Dr. Catalina Thiersen, who will explain super I'm so psyched for tomorrow. I hope I can sleep, but I'm really, really looking forward tomorrow to see all them. And good friend of mine, unfortunately, could not make it tomorrow, but we had him on for tomorrow's big webinar. But we have find somebody who is also a veterinarian and a wonderful trainer. You will meet her tomorrow from Holland. And most clinicians, they complain that the riders hang in the horse's mouth. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? Is the saddle not fitting the rider? And then the horse deviates because the rider is sitting wrong on the horse? Or is the horse wrongly trained? Because I'm believe on crank and spank, so when I ride a horse like A, get the haunches underneath, get the weight off the forehand, wonderful. But if I just pull my horse together, the spine will have issues. Besides the spine, other issues as well. And then we got other veterinarians, and I like to show this, introduce myself with all these vets, because I didn't learn this as a saddle maker. There's to this day no saddle fitting school or a saddlery or an apprenticeship where you learn what the vets learn. So where else to go if the body workers, the veterinarians who study this for years, the physiology, the anatomy of the horse, the biomechanics. So here we got a vet who wrote a wonderful articles about the facial expression when the horse is in pain. That was also my cover on the first book I published, because I believe strongly the eyes and ears don't lie, and this is so great that we have now Saddlefit for Life online, so we can share with you our last 40 years of experience. And there's over 20 courses online. And of course, tomorrow, Saddlefit for Life Academy has this wisdom exchange. And to give you a little brief idea what causes all this turmoil in the job of the saddle makers and the people who sell saddles and fit saddles and people who ride saddles, is that we have to be realistic here. We cannot ignore anymore that the majority of the riders changed. We have now a huge influx, and the majority of the riders are women. The horses' breed changed. And the first panelist tomorrow, she will talk about how the horses' breed changed in the last 40 years. And then, of course, we don't have just working horses anymore. Now, Saddlefit for Life, doesn't matter if you're a recreational rider, if you're riding sports, if you use it for work. The picture on the top, the warrior, gives you the best signal. They can sleep while the horse carries the rider. But look at where the horse's hind leg is. Look how high the horse's back is. So with his hind leg all the way underneath and locking his stifle, that horse, carry a rider without getting long-term damage. So Saddlefit for Life doesn't like to say, yeah, it has to be this make or this make. Sure, my name is Jochen Schleser, and yes, I make saddles, but our market share worldwide is so minuscule. Plus, if I want every person to buy my saddles, we couldn't deliver, and mostly couldn't service this. So the only chance I can follow my heart and my passion is to make what I call an academy and share my experience and knowledge with other saddle makers, and mainly with all the riders out there. So when you have the education, the knowledge, you have power. And then you can source the manufacturers or the saddle fitters you feel comfortable and what makes sense to you. There's tons and tons of information out there. And sometimes it's very clever marketing. That's why I like to keep it simple. We want to fit the anatomy of the horse and the anatomy of the rider without creating any long-term damage. And that's what this is all about. This is my passion. This is why Sonia and I are so eager. And we will now have a little word how this tomorrow runs. So Sonia, do you want to take over the screen? And I'm going to, you already done it, share a little bit with the audience what can we expect tomorrow.
Absolutely. So just to give everyone a little bit of an idea of how this conference is being structured, it's running on Eastern Standard Time, and we start at 9 a.m. sharp tomorrow morning. And a little bit later, I'll go through the actual schedule, but I just wanted to introduce you to some of the speakers if you don't know them already. So obviously you know Jochen Schlese, he's going to be talking about the physical effects of improper saddle fit and how it affects not just the longevity, but the overall health of the horse, because a lot of people like to look at the horse in sections, but the truth about horses and how they function is as a whole system, as with any body, either human or animal. We are systems, we are interconnected. Something that, affects the hyoid will affect the back legs. So we have to look at the horse as one big picture, as opposed to just the legs, just the back, just the teeth, just the neck. And that's sort of the premise of our web conference, is a very holistic approach to equine care, looking at all facets of care and also how they relate to saddle fit. So I'll go down, and just to let everyone know that we actually have member pricing available to people who are not members of the Academy. Just let me move that. And what that means is people who are not registered with any kind of membership in Saddle Fit for Life Academy, they can actually still get the feature pricing. And this is only available until today, so it does end tonight. But what it gives you is not only access to the live conference, but it also gives you access to the recorded conference as well. So you can go back in and view it however many times you want, make notes, and keep going back and asking questions and getting further information. So it's a really good way to have access to really cool information and a whole conference without necessarily having to be there. So one of our speakers is Dr. Michelle Broadhurst, and she did a presentation for us on the myofascial link, and she's going to be going further in depth into that presentation. And the fascia has for so long been ignored both in equine health and not even considered in holistic therapy. So it's a very exciting topic, and the effects of actually treating it are astounding, to say the least. So functions of the fascia, what protects, how it surrounds, separates, supports, and communicates. And I think everyone is going to be blown away by this presentation. Another one of our presenters who has also done a short webinar for us is Barbara Schultz, and she talks specifically about modern sport horses and the breeding standards and how we are creating a modern horse, but is it a happy athlete or a deplorable creature? Not based strictly on the aesthetic of the animal, but how the animal functions biomechanically. And if we are breeding a handicap into these horses that will make them suffer for their entire life. So this is going to be a very hard-hitting presentation, but definitely something that you don't want to miss, as modern breeding standards, even though they mostly refer to the warm bloods, are actually quite far-reaching and can be seen in almost every breed today.
Hey, Sonia.
Yep.
Who is this person making such a noise in the background? Or is it a little kitty?
That is Peanut, who is also very different.
She is so loud. It's hilarious. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so moving on, we have Dr. Alan Schoen, who is a retired veterinarian, and he is the author of The Compassionate Equestrian, and he looks at the neural link as well as neuroscience in regards to the connection we have with animals, how to better our relationship with them, and how these actually affect how well we work with horses, how well they respond to training, to treatment, and various other communication and stimulation for the horse, and also other animals. But tomorrow we'll be focusing on the horse specifically. And we also have Dr. Karen Liebrandt, who is a veterinarian turned trainer, and she focuses on the 4 dimensions of training and is the founder of 4 Dimension Dressage International. And she takes a very practical approach to training, looking at the biomechanics of the horse, the physiology of the horse, any asymmetries of the horse, and really helps the rider understand how their balance, how their position, how the way they're riding affects the horse on these 4 dimensions, and to build a healthy, happy, long-lasting athlete who is not prone to injury or accident or breaking down early. So once again, those are just a few of the speakers that we're going to be presenting. We have 7 in total, and we're extremely excited for this event, which we hope will continue into the coming years and just get bigger and better. But definitely go to the link that's available on Facebook. I'll just post it in the comment section, and take advantage of the member pricing. And even if you can't attend because the scheduling doesn't work, or you're not in a time zone where you don't want to be up at 2 in the morning, you can still watch the whole presentation after. So it's a win-win for everyone. And I'll give it back over to Jochen to add anything that he wants to. But that's pretty much it. We hope to see everyone there. This is something that, regardless of the discipline you ride, regardless of how experienced you are, it will help you as a horse owner. It'll help you as a rider. And it's just so much exciting and interesting information for everyone.
Wow, thank you so much. Quick question. How many speakers do we have in total?
We have 7 speakers.
7 speakers, wow. And I noticed you didn't mention anything from Dr. Catalina Thiersen. She will be there tomorrow as well, isn't she?
Yes, so Dr. Catalina Thiersen works specifically with the Helen Davies Research Project, and what she will be presenting is, and just let me see here.
I think you have pressure.
Yeah, pressure that leads to bone changes in the shoulder and spinous processes of horses. And she will have over 12 years of examples through the dissections that they've done that she will share as well. So that's going to be a very interesting presentation. We also have, that I didn't highlight, was
Jamie?
Yes, so she's going to be doing a pre-ride safety checklist. And this is just to better understand sort of how to check all your tack, which I'm sure all of us do, but it's specific to correct saddle fit and making sure that, you know, you're being safe and that you're not setting the horse up to have some sort of a catastrophic accident or injury, and just being aware, which is another theme throughout the web conference, is being aware, being not just aware of how you are acting, but how you're being towards your horse, and being present in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So these are the topics what we see tomorrow. I don't know if this might be a little blurry, but can you read it, Sonia?
Yep, it looks clear.
Super, super. So we don't want to give us too much away, but you and I had the pleasure to meet Dr. Catalina Thiersen in South Africa. What was that the most what blew you away?
I think the fact that, and this is true for everyone that we work with, is they're coming from mostly industries that are health related, and they're tired of seeing the Band-Aid solutions. And with all of our presenters and all of our collaborators, they're tired of just fixing the symptoms. And you see and hear and feel the passion in all of their presentations when they talk about, you know, how they're trying to change the way people train, or change the way people view saddle fit, or, you know, change the way people view breeding. And that's also with Catalina. Like, what blew me away was how passionate you could tell she was about helping horses, about the research that she's doing, and how much it meant for her to be able to save a horse from going under the knife.
Right. And without giving too much away for tomorrow, you know, remember how we had that seminar with Barbara Schulte?
Yes.
This stuck with me so much. How did that resonate with you?
Actually, that video that I found and shared with all of our students is one of the reasons that I brought her on as a collaborator, because she's telling the hard truth. She's telling the truth that no one wants to hear. And she's letting people know that, you know, a lot of these horses, they're being bred with a handicap. They're being bred not to last, but to have unnatural, flashy movements that, you know, destroy the body of the horse. And no one wants to hear it. So with her, what resonated with me is she's fighting the good fight. You know, she's pushing hard, and regardless of how many times organizations try and shut her down or, you know, silence her, she keeps trying to get this information out there, which is why we've also brought her on.
Well, this brings me to another topic, but before I go there, don't you think that Karen was the same thing? That she
Absolutely.
stands up and when I talked to her, she said to me, "You wouldn't believe the flack I got from my fellow veterinarian colleagues." So when you talk to her, did you feel the same thing, that how she speaks for the horse and does not deviate under the pressure of the industry?
For a lot of people who fight against industry norms, which can be anything from not fitting saddles to the anatomy of the horse, or not instantly going to injections and trying to actually treat the cause as opposed to just the symptom, they get a lot of pressure from their peers and pressure from the industry to be quiet, stay within the norm, don't try and be someone who changes things or, pushes for positive change. It's hard for everyone. And in knowing that difficulty, which, our company has seen with a lot of saddle manufacturers saying, this saddle fits every horse, you don't need saddle fitting. We know what it's like. And that's why we're bringing these people on, because they're passionate. They're passionate regardless of how much pressure their peers or their industry puts on them. They will keep fighting. They'll keep fighting tooth and nail for the horse.
Yeah. So, when you and I started to work together and we used this tool here from France, I mean, the first one was this full girth, and now they make it so much easier because they got that sleeve. I mean, if I look at it, what we can all collect the data. See, this tool, this device doesn't have the option of thinking by themselves and says, "Oh, I don't like that saddle company, I'm going to give it shitty data," right? This tool just collects data from the animal. Who cares what saddle it's on? Could be a sponsored saddle, could be an expensive, inexpensive one, could be even one of ours, Schlesser. What I love about tools today or data, and you use the same thing on the racetrack and Johannesburg, and we can use it, and then we can learn from it. And there's so many other tools, such as the pressure mat, from what we can see, how much pressure there is put from the rider into the seat, or how much pressure on the horse's back is put on the horse's back from the saddle. Yet, with all this evidence and data, what do you think, why people still poo-poo it?
I think the reason is understanding data can be overwhelming for a lot of people. They will have pages and pages of data, but they won't know what to do with it. They won't understand what changes need to be made. They won't understand how to properly analyze it. They won't understand what it means in regards to how their horse is performing. So if, for example, someone has a metalogic pad and it's reading pressure without the appropriate education for the person who's running that software or using the tool, pressure on, for example, the lumbar, they won't know how that's affecting their horse, or how it's affecting the gait, or how it's affecting the skeletal structure of the horse or the posture negatively. They'll just know that it's pressure. So it's a combination of too much information without really knowing. So yeah, too much information, not enough education, because they are different things. So what we're trying to do with our conference is provide the information and education at the same time. So people can take it back to their horse, relate it to their horse, and use the information that we provide in a way that benefits them and their horse.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things what I find also very disheartening, I mean, this is not written by the saddle maker or by us, Saddlefit for Life. It's written by a medical doctor. And yet, people still trying to say, I don't believe it is all hocus pocus, So I wanted to share, I did something, Sonia, I wanted to share that quick with our audience, how incredible difference the cast is, and I have shown this before, and I don't think that it really resonates with people, but when you look at the difference between the impact of the seat and that person who sits in the cast is the same height, same figure, like the other person who's a male, okay? So these two casts, what you see here in the picture, they don't really give enough justice. So here you see two people, one is a girl, one is a boy. Both of them are 5'10", and they're both slim. But once we did the seat impression, what we used to do all the time for custom-made saddles when people have broken pelvises, these people had no broken pelvises. The only reason why I compared them side by side, I wanted to show everybody how important the ground seat is on the Western saddle or the English saddle. So I'm going to stop my screen sharing and we'll get something for you guys. So first I'm going to get so this is, I'm going to turn this down a little bit. This is the typical tree for Western saddle. Super heavy, rawhide, reinforced, and some saddle makers use metal plates for the ground seat, and they put a little bit hard leather on top. So this is what calls the ground seat. So I'm going to go now and get the two cast impressions. So here you see the cast impressions, and you can see how it goes down. Back here, you see the two seat bones. And I don't know if this pelvis will fit because this is a plastic. So the male would sit down where the indent sits, and you can see where the pubic symphysis is, and you can see how this is level. Now, if I make a ground seat, what fits this? So in other words, I make a Western saddle or English saddle with the ground seat. And you see many Western saddle where down here where the pockets are, seat bones, they're middle or rear balance. Okay, and with the nice and rise in the crotch, so the male has a chance to put his parts left and right. We don't want that flat, we want that nice and pointy. So now, let's get the female impression. Here you see the cast from a female. You can see a complete different impact. You see a straight point and a low point here in the front. And of course, we all know the guys don't have babies, the women have babies because they have birth channels, and this is much further apart. So if I put female pelvis on this, I can see the seat bones are in this impression. And what makes the front part deeper is because the front part of the pubic symphysis sits lower. So when she sits in the ground seat, if the front part where the front butt spot is, if that would be high, she would be kicked back. So when I look at the ground seat of the male ground seat, and I make all my saddles with a male ground seat, but I have majority of my customers come to me in my tack shop and they buy breeches for them and they buy all their clothes for women, but I sell them a male saddle. The first what they do is hit the crotch and then they fall back, and now look how far they lean back. There is no way a lady could ever ride without damaging themselves on a male saddle. So I have here, I'm going to share my screen again. I have here a picture where you see how people, this is a test where the lady rides on it. I'll put this away first. There you go. There's a test where the lady is riding on a treadmill, and sometimes they get thrown in this super arc. They got to protect themselves, or they protect themselves by pushing themselves away from the pressure on the pubic symphysis, or they shift themselves from left to right. If I ignore that the tailbone is so much shorter on the female than on the male. If I ignore that the seat bones, you're looking at the pelvis not from the front like this, you're looking at this way. So you're looking at from the bottom. So you see the seat bones much narrower here in the male and female, and you're seeing the pelvis axis much more forward. So if we know all that, and we know we need a pliable seat, in order to get one, we need a perpendicular ground. We have riders, female riders, who spend a boatload, a lot of money on good horses and good training, on good saddles, but not on the gender appropriate saddle. Same with riding breeches. You know, women buy their riding breeches in the store for females, or at least in the section for females. So Sonia, my question is, and you heard this multiple times when we do webinars with collaborators, you know, they say, I have never heard about it. Why do you think so many people have never heard about it? What medical doctors write?
I think part of it is due to the industry, is we have been trained to just use whatever saddle comes with the horse. Ever since riding school, we would swap saddles just based on whatever makes us comfortable. But we're always taught, and this is by instructors who mean well, but also don't have the necessary education to understand how much equipment can hinder a rider, is if we have a fault in our position, it's our fault. It's a fault of our own, either because of lack of riding ability or some other issue. But no one in the history of teaching riding in most places has ever said, you might be in the wrong saddle, when looking at a rider and seeing them unable to become aligned properly. I think that is the biggest thing. And we need to focus on instructors and coaches to identify postural issues that are not caused by the rider being lazy or, not being able to ride properly, but rider issues as a symptom of the equipment not fitting the athlete, which is the rider. No one really, and this goes for saddle manufacturers, this goes for even a whole bunch of saddle fitters around the world. Very few will fit to the rider. Because
and I hope with make this information we share here online, and most of it's free, right? And if people really want to learn, well, we got over 20 courses online. But I think it's also convenience. I need a saddle now, and I've been to 3 tack shops and they don't have a clue what I talk about with gender appropriate saddles. Or they're trying to convince you this fits because on that particular saddle they have the highest margin on, and the customer says, okay, I give up, I buy it. Only to hear from clinician, these comments here, what I put up on the slide, is common. If you're out of balance, they hang in the horse's mouth, and you gotta have good hands to be a good rider. Well, I'm just a pleasure rider. Well, if you are a pleasure rider and you go for hikes and you're constantly shifting your weight in the seat and you're always trying to move around, the amount of torque you put on that animal's back, it's unbelievable. And that goes on the joints, So if you want to jump, you go for a hike and you want to jump over the river, I guarantee you, you're going to land soft on the other side, because if not, you blow your kneecap out or your disc. So we focus, we program by nature to absorb the income shock. So how come that some people can't do the sitting trot? Or if they clamp themselves with the knees or with big thyroids in the saddle, they cannot have a pliable seat. Again, I quote that all the time, so I said this so many times, that the secret of good riding is a good seat. Seat is number one. And it says here, it is the utmost importance not to cause the pupil any discomfort. So good luck if you don't ride in the gender appropriate saddle. With the cramped seat or posture, it's impossible to achieve a pliable seat. So what is a pliable seat? Absorb the incoming shock. So you pivot with your pelvis Pretend you're sitting on a watch and the front of the pelvis is 12 and the tail of your pelvis is 6 o'clock. So you pivot your pelvis kind of like this while you ride, right? So that's a pelvis tilt. That's how you absorb the shock. If you don't have that, where is your shock going? Watch next time you watch people ride. How many people ride like this? Right? That head bobbing or like down here. Okay?
That is my favorite sitting trot that you do. I love
All right, so somewhere, if I don't have the ability to pivot my pelvis, the force got to go somewhere. So if I don't pivot my pelvis, and this is, I don't care if my head is bonging around. So what you don't have is no pliable seat. And what does it say here? Without a pliable seat, it's not possible to achieve oscillation in the horse's back, which means the horse cannot bring up the back in order to get the hind leg underneath. It's impossible. This is physics. This is nature. I don't care what spurs you use or how sharp your whip is, or if you use electric shock, the horse cannot deform the bones in a forceful way. The bones will deform itself if you keep banging them, but most of the time to a part what you will learn we will learn that tomorrow from Dr. Katarina Pearson, the back will compensate. So what does it say? Without a pliable seat, it's not possible to achieve oscillation in the horse's back. And if the back cannot oscillate, here's the kicker, the horse will suffer pain and it's not able to collect, but the haunch is underneath. So if most of people fit saddles and they have their heart in the right position and they want to do the best for the horse, if most trainer says, you know what, I can sit in any saddles, male, female, doesn't matter, how big or small, I can ride in anything, so long it fits the horse, I'm okay. So if we don't want to learn from people who do this over 400 years, why do we need to reinvent the wheel? If people have ridden horses and trained horses for survival, function, and a way of getting the animal to last a long time, why do I need to ride like a jackhammer? Because I don't have a pliable seat. And Sonia, I believe very strongly is because most people don't know what they don't know. And the damage is written very clear. The hips, the disc, knees, and the soft tissue damage on the riders. And for those people who went through this and then hear that there is actually pliable seat, gender appropriate saddles, they either get very mad or they're going to say, how come I had to ride all my life in saddles where I have to protect myself? This is facts, ladies and gentlemen. This is not what I come up and pull out of my nose. These pictures here are from books from different veterinarians. Why would veterinarians talk about how rider sits? Because you are double your weight and you are super heavy. No saddle can absorb that if you're not soft. Okay, and then
I wanted to quickly say something. So I ride quite regularly, and I have a horse who is particularly sensitive to rider position. And we are actually working on creating a video series on how little the rider needs to change position in order for her to move inverted and then engaged. And the variance is so small, where when you see a rider who is cramped, who is tilted forward, who is out of balance, I can almost guarantee that the horse, regardless of how hard they try, will never be in balance. They can't be.
Yeah.
You have this random weight flying around on top of your back. How easy do you think it is for these animals to balance themselves and their rider all at once? It's not doable.
Yes, nice. And that's what, the one I heard first was from Gerd Heuschmann, who was a veterinarian, and he points at the rider here, Don't focus on the horse, focus on the rider. If you don't get the jackhammer quiet, how can you get the horse happy? And another veterinarian who is part of it tomorrow, Karen Liebrand, she made that very, very clear, So if you do not have that balance, if you don't have an understanding, like you just said, Sonia, it doesn't matter how the saddle fits for that moment. We got great tools like thermography where we can see, look at how the whole shoulder is inflamed. Or we can wait until the horse is dead. Look how this is there. But why don't we listen to the experts? And I think this is why you feel so strong to put that I don't know if that's fuzzy or not, but that's why you feel so strong to put that tomorrow on the agenda, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have a couple minutes left, and are there any outstanding questions from last week?
We don't have any outstanding questions, but I do have questions that people have submitted for tomorrow. So I wanted to just let people know that, tomorrow is all about education. It's all about the horse, and doesn't matter if you ride once a week, just plodding around the field, or if you ride competitively. These presentations will change your outlook on equine care and hopefully help you provide better care for your horses. And, I'm just excited to run it, especially with all the collaborators that we have who share our passion, share our values, and share our mission.
Yeah, wonderful. So I think we all, as horseback trainers, we had horses who reacted out of the blue and then toss the rider or just goes out. So we have one, I was looking for it, but I don't have it here, but the circle of influence. There's 8 factors why the three-dimensional back of the horse changes. And sometimes, and this is why I think Sonia used so on that topic, is because sometimes the saddle, it's okay. It could be an underlying problem. And when I don't fix the underlying problem, is it myofascia? Is it the way it's trained? Is it the way the horse is bred? If I don't really look a little further than just the saddle, then all you end up is buying saddle, fixing saddles, and you don't fit the course. So it goes both ways. Don't you find that?
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. And, an informed owner is an owner that can better protect their horse, and that's our goal for everyone.
Right. And why are we not pushing the name saddle fitter so much, in your opinion?
Because saddle fitter has a generally negative connotation, especially in certain parts of the world where a saddle fitter would come out, sort of look at the saddle, not see it ridden in, not measure the horse in any way, except for maybe doing a few angles here and there, not measuring the rider at all. And then they go and recommend a saddle, or, they have a saddle that kind of fits, and all they do is recommend, use this pad, use this shim, not taking into consideration that once the horse starts moving, shims can move. Once the horse is in motion, pads move, and not even understanding the importance of rider fit to saddle which is equally as important as saddle fit to horse.
Mm-hmm.
So you have people who call themselves saddle fitters, but they really don't take into account the anatomy of both human and horse, or the biomechanics, or the consequences. They dismiss studies that say, you can cause kissing spine, or, saying that saddle fit issues don't only affect the back, but can affect every part of the horse.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we don't like to use the term saddle fitter, because for us, it doesn't encompass what we do, what we stand for, and our values.
So Sonia, the number one home hit for me, not home hit, where it hit home for me was when I was in England. It doesn't cost a lot of money to keep a horse in England, because there's always green grass and there's horses everywhere. And so a lot of people have horses, and some people barely can put food on the table for the family, but they have a horse. But then there's also the other extreme. You got people who barely have any money, and then you have people who have a lot of money. So I'm invited to this estate, and I couldn't believe the barn, the chandelier, the horses they have, the horse trailer. I have never in all my years of traveling around the world seen a place like this I've seen in England. So we talked a little bit, and I got in there with the physiotherapist who works on her horses regular. And she says, will you please help me to help this woman one more chance? So we got talking about, and the physiotherapist introduced me, and as soon as the word saddle fitter came out of the physiotherapist's mouth, you could literally see how the red started in the person's head. Her eyes almost popped out. She got so mad. She got so mad. I had every saddle fitter here from the UK, from Germany, from Europe, everywhere. I don't want to hear no saddle fitter is ever allowed to come to my property again. And I was really shocked. And the physiotherapist says, you know, the problem comes here in the area where the saddle sits. So we need to look how the saddle fits. I get it, says the owner, but every saddle fitter says something different. There's 8 myths of saddle fitting. I mean, 8 different schools who teach something completely different. But I guarantee you, every veterinarian, every physiotherapist, every osteopath will use the same words for the certain parts of the name of that muscle versus this bone or versus this, right? So why can we not all speak as saddle makers or saddle fitters the same language, which is based on not opinion? You know, these t-shirts are actually exist. What is a saddle fitter? An individual does precision guesswork based on unreliable data provided by those in question knowledge, also known as wizards, you know, magicians. So that woman was so mad. And when I says, well, I'm not a saddle fitter, I'm an equine ergonomist, saddle ergonomist. She says, what's that? What's a saddle ergonomist? And if we are proud to say we belong to an equine professionals who dedicate to protect horse and riders from long-term damage caused by ill-fitting saddles and tack, also known as expert and associates of Saddle Fit for Life Global Network, because we believe on follow the law of nature and we look at science and data. So when I make a saddle as a saddle maker, and I have a physiotherapist, osteopath, body worker, veterinarian, trainer says, you know what, it's tight here, the horse doesn't come through. Sometimes they allow me to ride it horse and I can feel it. You can't sometimes put it into words, but Saddle Fit for Life makes a huge effort to make sure that we put on only the best of the best who really want to work together with other equine professionals. Because what's the point of keep fitting the saddle when the underlying issue may be somewhere else? And you need to know a little bit about anatomy or osteopath or shoeing or nutrition. And that's why tomorrow's Global Wisdom Exchange is so valuable for all saddle people who work with saddles. You know, so we're trying to stay away from the word saddle fitter. We fit saddles. You know, we want to make people aware that the interface saddle is just a man-made tool, what is between 2 different beings, what are not meant by nature to sit or carry each other. So very, very important for us. And that's why our educational academy has several different courses, whatever you guys want. If you're already into saddle making and you want to know what's the difference between the tree width and tree angle, to this day still some saddle manufacturers that just got glazery eyes and says, you mean a hoop tree or you mean an A tree? I mean, there's again, million different names. All what you know is certain horses have very wide shoulders, certain horses have very narrow shoulders, certain horses have very flat withers, certain horses have very steep angle withers. So we have the withers to fit and we have to fit the shoulders. So obviously we need 2, tree width and tree angle. Most manufacturers don't offer that in their saddles, that you can independent from the one to the other. You can independently change the tree width and independently the angle. Now, let me see if I have it here. Here's one. So the companies, the industry start changing. You can see here's a manufacturer where you can, as a rider, take this plate out because many horses are uneven. So you can go actually ahead and for the larger shoulder, widen just this side versus that side. That only works if you have a special tree made of polypropylene. It does not work If you have a tree what is designed in the 1700s, a wood tree, many saddle makers still use this. It's unbelievable, very cheap to buy, very hard to make. I always wondered how they can manufacture for that cost. But when you would install that device in this tree and you widen this side, it would twist the entire saddles. So obviously saddle companies who sell manufacturers this saddles with this tree will completely poo-poo the idea and says, oh my God, you can't have the one side more open than the other, even though the horse is extremely uneven in the scapular. And many horses are. And people ignore it. You know, they say, oh, that's normal. They are atrophying here. Right here, you see the cranial nerve 11, okay, which gets triggered when the tree width is not properly adjusted, or the tree angle. Again, two different things. Okay, so the companies in the or manufacturers, they listen just like you to the webinar, and they heard the webinar about the transitional vertebrae. You know, many horses haven't. It's hard to detect. And what we learned from the webinar we run, there's a nerve running on top. Normally the nerve is underneath, but on the horse with the transitional vertebrae, it's on top. And all of you have pinched a nerve, you know how painful that is. Give you an example. This is not a funny bone, that's a nerve ending. That funny bone, when you hit that nerve ending, it goes all the way to the pinky. So that kind of a pain could be on the horse's back, and the horse then deviates from it. And if I'm watching this horse going on the treadmill, okay, not only the shoulder goes back and forth, you also see how the spine kind of goes diagonal and twisting. And if I put a rigid wooden tree in it, how does that work? Or look at this horse. The mane goes to the left. Clearly the horse has more muscular side on the right. Look how much that right shoulder and how much muscles there is on the right versus the left. Okay, so way more developed on the right. And most of the time, the shoulder, what's bigger developed, pushes the mane to the opposite side. So here we see the horse bigger developed on the left side, mane goes to the right. So obviously manufacturers worldwide already saying, isn't that something? Maybe we need to think about it. Oh, we're going to train this straight. Okay, you want to train a bone structure what compensated straight. It's kind of like saying to a lady who has bunions on their feet, saying, oh, we're going to give you physical therapy to your foot so your bone structure will be straight. Ridiculous, right? If it's a muscular thing, you can train it. But if a bone structure and your horse keeps pushing you to one side, maybe not that extreme like this white horse, but go next time you go through the show jumping course, you will see hundreds of horses jumping. So now stand in front of the triple. Watch how often that person's left leg is out. And I guarantee you that horse's mane is on the right. If the right leg sticks out, 90% the mane is to the left. So if we know that horses have, well, change in the breed, and horses have different wither lengths, sometimes longer, sometimes short, we must understand, even though some manufacturers say horses do have collarbones, they don't. You know, so when I'm going to stop my screen sharing because it's almost over anyway, so I'm going to get something else. This is what they call the invisible horse, and you can put it together. It's kind of like a little puzzle, and here you can really see nicely how the lumbus versus processes sticking out, and you do not want to sit on them at all. So you do want to sit on top of the rib cage. Now the scapular, here I opened this, took the bones out of that side. So here you see only the scapular, okay? So the scapular, in other words, the entire front leg is not connected like in the back. The spine is connected with the sacroiliac joint. In the front, the spine is connected with muscles. But sometimes this bone here, this upper bone, compensated, and not because you did something wrong, you all heard what we call the natural unevenness. So for me, I am so pumped for tomorrow. I cannot tell you, because lots of things will come together for us. And I hope you guys can make it, and tell everybody, please join us and tell your friends what you learned. Sonia, any other words you want to say?
No, I think that's it. We highlighted some of our speakers and what the conference is about. And, even if you're not able to attend, like I said, you will have access to the recording. So it's a win-win for everyone. And like Jochen said, I hope to see everyone there.
Okay, dokie. So is there a link below you can attach, or how do they get to this?
So I've attached a link to the video on our Saddlefit for Life Facebook page, and it's also available on our event as well. So the link is available in multiple places.
Super. So I will talk to you guys tomorrow, and if not tomorrow, it will be very sad to miss you. But anyway, if I hopefully see you then next Friday. So I say goodbye. Thank you very much, and see you tomorrow.